Thank you. Yeah, that's perfect. Oh, well, happy Father's Day, everyone. It's Father's Day, summer solstice. Ramadan started this week as well. It's a very full time of year. And as I was thinking about what my talk was going to be today, I was thinking about Father's Day. I was thinking about the divine masculine. I was thinking about what is that exactly? What is that divine masculine energy? And what came up for me was, I know some of you know I've been teaching a class on Robert Brummett's Finding Yourself in Transition. And it was an incredible class. I mean, it was very powerful. And there were a lot of questions that started to come up for me. And one of them, which I'm going to ask you, is where are you working too hard? Where in your life are you working too hard? Are you muscling? Are you pushing it? Are you trying to force something to happen, trying to make something happen? In Robert Brummett's book, he used an expression that once I did some research on it, I was kind of shocked I had never heard of it before, but it's pushing the river. And I love that expression, right? Pushing the river. As if you could, and yet we all do it, right? We try to push the river. We try to make things happen the way we want them to happen. We try to push the river, no matter how futile it is. And it's amazing how we keep trying to do it over and over and over again. So in Robert's book, which is really a wonderful guide for transition, transformation, and change, he talks about how every transition, every transformation, every aspect of change that is happening in your life, and guess what, folks? You're in the middle of change and transformation, transition right now, right? It is our very life. That is the process of life itself, is change, transformation, transition. That is life itself. And he breaks it down so that there's 4 phases. And he starts off with the first phase being endings. The second phase is the void. Dum, 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 dum. Right? The third phase is new beginnings. And the fourth phase is what he calls the promised land. So we have endings, the void, new beginnings, and the promised land. And at any point in your life, in all areas of your life, you are in one stage or another of these stages of transition. Some parts of your life are in endings, some parts of your life are in the void, some aspects of your life are in new beginnings, some aspects of your life are in the promised land. Can you feel that? Can we feel how that feels truthful? So, which of those 2 do you think we struggle with the most?
The endings and the void.
The endings and the void. Right? We do not like endings. We do not like to navigate pain. We do not like to navigate grief. We do not like to navigate sorrow. We do not like to navigate the fact that everything we think we know is falling away. We do not like them. Are they a part of life? Yeah. Can we avoid them? We can try, but they're still going to come up for us because they are a part of the evolution of transformation and change. We cannot bypass our way through endings. We cannot do it. They make us very uncomfortable. And the void makes us even more uncomfortable.
That's right.
Because the void is where we know nothing. Where every familiar landscape that is comfortable, that is something that we are actually can sort of tag ourselves into in relationship to this, I know who I am, is obliterated. All the landmarks are gone. We are literally in a landscape that is completely unfamiliar. And it feels as if nothing is happening. It feels as if in that space that we are just suspended in animation, and we do not like that. Even if we're going downhill fast, we like going downhill. Right? It's the that really throws us off. And so what often happens is that when we're in the void, where we feel as if nothing is happening, that's when we are most likely to start pushing the river. That is when we are most likely to start to try to make something, anything happen. Anything is better than the nothingness. I like to call it the goo. So, you've all heard the analogy of a caterpillar becoming a butterfly, right? So we have the caterpillar, it goes into its cocoon, it literally dissolves, the caterpillar literally dissolves into a completely different cell structure. Scientists call them imaginal cells, because it is neither a caterpillar, and it's not yet a butterfly. It's the goo. I call it the goo. It is the void. It is the nothingness. And it is out of those imaginal cells that the butterfly that has always been there, even if you couldn't see it, even if you couldn't sense it, even if it seemed like the biggest, farthest dream possible, is actually present and waiting to emerge. And that process of the emerging is a struggle. There is effort that goes into it. If you take a butterfly that is trying to emerge out of its cocoon and you cut the cocoon away from the butterfly will die. Because there is part of the process of the moving through the cocoon, which actually scrapes all kinds of stuff, dust off of the wings. There's a whole thing that happens. But without that effort of getting the wings moving, the wings stay too wet and they cannot take flight. And because they cannot fly, they die. So there is something in that process of becoming something new, which requires something of us, which asks something of us. It's not that it's hard, but there is something that we have to activate. There is something we have to step into. Now, when we think about transitions and transformation and all this, and we think about endings and the void and new beginnings in the promised land, especially with endings in the void, we tend to think of them around those transitions in our life that are painful, that are uncomfortable. But these 4 stages are happening for every transition in your life, even the ones that you're welcoming, even the ones that feel good to you. When Chris and I, so 10 years ago, I was still a professional actor, working in New York City. I was making my living, I loved it. I loved my life. I did. It was an incredible life. But I was literally living sort of paycheck to paycheck. I never quite knew when the next gig was going to come or what the next gig was going to be or how long it was going to be for. And I was loving all of that. But I set an intention that I wanted to buy a house in New York City. I wanted to buy a house. And I didn't have there was all sorts of things I didn't have. And I said, okay. And I'm so proud of myself because I did not push the river on this one. I actually just breathed into it and I said 10 years. I'm going to give myself 10 years and I want to own a home at the end of that 10 years. I didn't outline it. I didn't say it had to look this way. I didn't say it was going to work this way. I just said I am going to step into my prosperity consciousness. And I spent the next 10 years building that up. And I actually was able to, we bought a house 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago exactly now. It was at the 9-year mark in my 10-year intention. And it was literally a dream come true, right? This was something I had been working for, that Chris and I had been working for together for a period of time. And we got to the point where, and we had, let me tell you, we had worked it out. We had sat down with financial advisors and planners, and we had it worked out, and we knew exactly, there was no stress about where the money was going to come from. There was no real anxiety about any of that. It was all really clear. We were really smart about how we did it. We knew how much we could spend, the whole thing. The market, as you know, in this area is insane. And particularly where we live in North Oakland, it's crazy right now. And so we kept bidding on homes and bidding on homes and bidding on homes, and we would be the second under. And the people who were outbidding us were always outbidding us by like $200,000, all cash offer, right? And then there was us, just underneath there. And it kept happening over and over and over again. And we finally said, no pushing the river. We said, okay, look, we're getting tired. This is like, you get your hopes up, it's a lot of work. We said one more. It was like, we called it our Hail Mary. It was like, okay, this is it. This is our last. If we don't get in, we knew the window was closing. If we don't get in, we'll just stay renters. Life has been wonderful this whole time being a renter. It's not gonna get, it's okay. Like, it'll really be okay. And we got the house. We made one last offer and we got the house. And then what did I start doing? I started panicking. I started panicking because it was change. It was, even though it was change I wanted, even though it was a transition I had dreamed about, I had worked at for 10 years. I got to it and all of a sudden I was in an ending. I was in an ending. My life as a renter, my life as a carefree, happy-go-lucky, gotta give you 30 days notice and I'm out the door kind of gal, right, was ending. My ability to call up the landlord and say, excuse me, there's a leak. You need to come deal with this, was ending, right? There were all these things that were ending. And there was literally a void because I had never been a homeowner before. I had no idea. God, I'm telling you, insurance is crazy complicated, right? I had no idea what it looked like. I had no idea what's expected of us. I had no idea how you got it. I mean, my brain was literally being exploded with all the things I didn't know, right? And how do I take care of this? What are we gonna do if the roof starts to leak? I don't know. I don't know. So even the things that we are excited about, even the things that bring us great joy, still trigger these same 4 stages. Is everyone with me? Can you feel that too? So, what if we breathed into transition in a different way? What if we could navigate transition in an entirely different way? So that expression, pushing the river, that Robert Brummett used, comes from a Chinese proverb, which is, don't push the river, it flows by itself. It's sort of like, I could have had a V8. Don't push the river, it flows by itself. So there is a natural process of transformation that is happening. It is happening. So how do we marry that with New Thought? How do we marry that with what we know and believe, which is that we claim, we name, we activate the good that is our life. We call it forth. We know the truth. We know truth. How do we act? How do we live into that and at the same time, be able to not push that river, to not force something? Anybody in here kayak? Whitewater rafting? Oh, I got a few people. Okay, so I know nothing about whitewater rafting, except Google is an amazing resource. And there is this phenomena when you are kayaking or whitewater rafting they call it a couple of things. They call it the vortex, they call it the hole, they call it a hydraulic, right? They've got all kinds of names for it. But what the experience of this is, I think it's just the coolest thing, is that there is some sort of rock or obstruction in the river, and the water is coming over the rock. And as it comes down off the rock, when it hits the bottom, it swirls back up in a whirlpool. Right? So it's coming over and it's going woo, woo. And if you're coming over the river and you get just on the other side of where the water's going down, you get caught in the part that's pulling you back towards the part that's going down, and you don't go anywhere. You just sit there on the top of the water while this is going down and this is pushing you up, and you just sort of stay. That's why they call it a hole, because you can get stuck there. You can get stuck there. And if you're unlucky enough while you're whitewater rafting or kayaking, that as your kayak goes over one of these rocks and sort of hits one of these holes, that you get dumped into the water, the vortex itself starts to pull you down, right? The force of the water is pulling you down. So what do you think you're supposed to do? Go with it. The river guides tell you, not just even go with it. Get yourself into a cannonball. Make yourself as small, dense, and heavy as you possibly can, and sink to the bottom. Facilitate the energy that's taking you to the bottom of the river anyway. Don't fight it, don't just fight it, but literally go with it, like as much as you can, make yourself as small and dense as you can, take you to the bottom, and when you get to the bottom, you throw yourself open in a starfish. And what do you think the river does? Spits you right back up. Just sends you right to the top. There is something in that process that is fighting every human instinct we have. Every human instinct we have as we hit that water, as we hit the cold, rushing, terrifying water. Every instinct in us is screaming, swim to the top, right? Swim to the top, get to the air, swim to the top. And that instinct, which people can die that way, because you cannot fight the pull that's trying to pull you down, and all you do is exhaust yourself. All you do is exhaust yourself by fighting the dynamic. And you have to surrender up that primal desire to do the thing that you think is going to work for you. And you have to allow yourself to be carried by something. You have to allow yourself surrendering it up, and then you get moved. Now, all of the research that I did on this thing, because it was extensive, I don't like to stand up here without really knowing what I'm talking about if I haven't experienced it myself. I was on Reddit reading serious kayakers talking about their experiences being dumped into the hole. And it is terrifying. It is terrifying. And they talk about how terrifying it is and how hard it is to fight that impulse, to actually counter it with this other idea. And that is what we do here. That is what we do with our principles of truth. We do not give in to that instinctive desire to run, to hide, to do the habitual thing. But we anchor ourselves in something that we know is going to carry us into freedom, that is going to carry us as the flow. So, what are we activating? What is it that we're being asked to activate? And what we're being asked to activate is our allowing. Does that make sense? We have to activate our allowing. That masculine principle, that active principle, that dynamic has to be balanced and integrated with the receptive potential. They have to live together. If we're out of balance, if we've got too much of one or too much of the other, then we start pushing the river. You can be completely in receptive mode and still be pushing the river because you're not allowing yourself to be activated by it. You're letting it rush past you, so we could maybe call it blocking the river. I call it the balancing point of the divine. It's that space where we are active and alive and alert, and we are also receptive, right? Receptive to how we're being guided. And in that space, in the void, in those spaces of pain and loss, when we are overwhelmed by life, it happens, right? It happens. What we are asked to activate is that within us that can stand in faith, that can stand in truth, that can stand in principle. The families of the nine people in North Carolina made an announcement a couple days ago of forgiveness. They had this whole expression of forgiveness for the person who came into a prayer circle with a gun and killed their family members. Forgiveness. They showed up in forgiveness. Now that is what we would call walking the talk. They are anchored in principle. They are actually leaning into the thing that they believe in, that love is stronger than hate. That love is actually the most powerful thing that there is. That love is the force that is going to change and transform this world. And so they stepped into forgiveness. So when we are pushing the river, it's hard work. You guys know that feeling. When you're pushing the river, you get drained, you get exhausted, you feel like your resources are low. You feel like, I'm not getting anything back. you're not actually being rejuvenated. When we are actually in the flow and moving towards that next thing, it asks something of us. So it's not easy. It's not like, oh, la, 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 I just go with the flow and wherever it takes me. It asks something of us. To step into forgiveness for someone who has harmed your family, think about what that asked of those people. Think about what they had to do within themselves to truly stand in that place of compassion and forgiveness. That's the good. That's the good. More love showing up on this planet, even in the face of something that is so terrifying and so horrible. You know, it's Ramadan. I mentioned that Ramadan was starting this weekend. Ramadan is such a powerful month in that it is about taking time. It's about taking time during your day to not just be caught up in the busyness of everything. Taking time in the fasting, right? In the fasting process to allow yourself to place your attention on the divine, to place your attention on the things that really matter to us, to place our attention on the things that are harder to see when we are so caught up in what's right in front of our face. This next month is powerful because when you think about all of the billions of people who are standing in that consciousness, you can lean into that. You can access that consciousness that is happening right now, that is saying, I am actually taking the time to try to strip away the things that are not serving me. I am going to take time to step into the inquiry. And what does the inquiry look like? We get to ask questions. We ask questions like, what has always been my talent, gift, strength? When we don't know, when we're in the void, and we don't know what to do, we ask, what has always been there for me? What has always been there for me that I can lean into, that I know is mine? We ask, what makes my heart sing? What makes my heart sing? And we allow ourselves to be moved and touched by that. And we ask ourselves, what is so important to me that I would risk everything for it? What is so important to me that I would risk everything for it? And we don't try to come up with an answer. We just keep asking the question. We just keep allowing something within the goo, within the imaginal goo, to get activated into the butterfly. We just keep asking the questions. And we're having faith in the thing itself, not in the outline of the way we think it's supposed to show up. You often hear, when you're learning how to pray, at least in at Agape, the example that gets used all the time is, I want a red Maserati. I want a red Maserati. And so you're going to pray with somebody around a red Maserati. And we call that outlining, meaning that we're creating a very strong, thick outline of what it is that we think we want. And you guys have all heard the joke, right, about the guy in the flood, and the waters are rising, and his neighbors come by with the car and say, hey, come with us, we'll get you out of here. And he's like, no, I pray to God, God's going to rescue me. And then the water starts rising a little bit more, and his friends come by on a motorboat, and they say, hey, get in the boat, we'll get you out of here. And he's like, no, I pray to God, God's going to rescue me. And then the flood is like almost at the top of the roof, and a helicopter comes, and he says, get on, we'll get you out of here. And he's like, no, I pray to God, God's going to rescue me. And then he drowns. And when he gets up to heaven, he says to God, he's like, why didn't you rescue me? And God's like, excuse me, I sent you a car, a boat, and a helicopter. We get so fixed on how we think it's going to show up that we can't pay attention to what is available to us right now. So we have something that's stirring us, the red Maserati. We want a red Maserati. So instead of getting stuck in the outline of the red Maserati, we inquire. It's like, what is it about the red Maserati that I really want? What does it signify to me? What does it imply to me? What does it mean to me to have a red Maserati? Well, that could be a lot of things, right? Could be freedom, could be prosperity, could be youth, could be adventurer, right? It could be a a lot of things that red Maserati actually symbolizes for you. Do you actually need the red Maserati? No. What you want is the thing that the red Maserati symbolizes. That's what you actually want. So in the inquiry, we don't focus on the red Maserati. We focus on the thing underneath it. I want freedom. I want adventure. I want to be driving with the wind in my hair. What does that mean to you? A sense of freedom and flow, whatever that is. And that's what we pray for. That's the thing that we anchor ourselves in. Not how it's going to show up, but the what. The what it is that we are claiming is the very truth of our life. That is how we stop pushing the river. Because when we're pushing the river, it's usually because we want something to look a very specific way. We want it to show up in a way that looks exactly the way we want it to look. So instead of getting focused on how you think it's going to look, what if instead you focused on what it is you think that that's going to get you in your heart? How is that going to fulfill you? What is it that is trying to emerge through you that you have latched on to something like the red Maserati as being the thing that will do it for you? We don't believe that there are things outside of us that are doing things for us. We believe that we are the thing itself. So this is your opportunity to be able to stand in that. So that masculine principle, the thing we are activating, that is what we are activating. That is what we say yes to. That is the thing that we are saying, oh, I can claim this. Claim love, truth, creativity, freedom, flow, love, community, sacred sangha. That's what I get to create. You know, the Greek word for crisis, the root of the word is to decide. To decide. So what are you going to decide? In the midst of your seeming crisis, in the midst of those moments when you think that everything is falling apart, when you don't know which way to go, what is it that you are going to decide? Are you going to continue to try to push that river? Are you going to continue to work so hard? Or are you going to literally let yourself go with the flow? Are you going to let yourself activate your faith in these principles that we live into and lean into that and know that wherever it seems to be taking you, even as the cold and the shock of the water seems to be pulling you down to what feels like your very death, that there is that which will surface you, which will raise you up and hold you high. You raising you up, yes? Because we are the river itself. You will be moved. It is inevitable. So it is up to you to choose how it is that you are going to live into that movement. So let's take a breath together. We're going to take all this into meditation.
When I pray,
enter into the inquiry. You don't need to have an answer, just allowing the questions. Where am I working too hard? Where am I trying too hard? Where am I pushing the river in my life? Where am I blocking the river in my life? And holding that in love, holding that space within us that wants things to be familiar, just holding that space in compassion, in love, and looking deeper beneath that impulse. What is there? What is there that is seeking a greater expression as our life? What is it that if we weren't so afraid, that if we knew it was all working for our greatest good, truly knew that, what would we be willing to say yes to? Where are we being invited to surrender, to open ourselves up like that starfish, and to let the current carry us? What makes our hearts sing? What is ours to do and to be that requires no efforting? Taking all of this into the silence. And we know that this inquiry doesn't end, that it continues forth, guiding us, supporting us. That the river is there to hold us. It is our very life. Faith as our anchor.